So the process of centering prayer, the most fundamental notions of centering prayer, I think, are two things. The first, it's a receptive type of prayer. It's a fancy word for saying, you don't do anything, God does it all. And you're receptive. You're in a mode of receiving whatever it is that God's sending to you. Most prayer is not receptive. Most prayer is concentrative, where you say, help Aunt Sally, or help my wife, or help my kids. Whereas this is a whole different point of view, fundamentally different point of view. It's holding still in silence. And it's holding still in silence not as in the absence of noise. It's holding still in silence that's beyond noise, and it's the arena in which the divine speaks to us. Now, like any language, you need to learn its syntax and its grammar and its vocabulary. And I believe there is a syntax and a grammar and a vocabulary for silence. And in essence, it's recognizing the difference between your everyday thoughts and the non-ordinary, everyday type of thoughts. That's a little contradictory, but we have all sorts of things bombarding us in our mind. You know, some people call it the monkey mind, and it's true. So things like, I wonder how long I'm going to have to sit in meditation, I'm kind of tired, I wonder what I'm going to have for lunch, you know, all the stuff that our mind conjures up. But there's also something else, and it comes out of silence, and honestly, it's more a feeling than a thought. Although when we bring it up, it feels like a thought, but it's more of a settling in. It's more of a hunkering down. It's more of a centering. Wherever that center is, you kind of go to that center. And we go to that center naturally. We don't go to that center with intention or willpower. Oh, I'm going to get to the center. No. We get to that center by letting go and continuing letting go. So we let go of thoughts. You know, what's on my grocery list? And did my wife call me last night? And, you know, how are my kids doing? Oh, we just let those things go. We let those things go. And eventually we get into a mode of, I think the best word really is surrender, so that we're not doing any of that stuff. And that's when the centering really starts to happen. It doesn't happen in the first minute or two or three or four, but it starts to happen and you feel it. It's like that great big boulder that has been not able to settle into the earth gets twisted just a little bit, and then it settles into the earth. So you know, when I try to teach this stuff, the first thing I say is it's a receptive type of prayer. You just have to sit still, and God's going to take over. And you don't know that yet, and you won't believe it yet, but you will find out that that's exactly what happens. And the second thing is, you're going to think, I can't do this. I see all these guys sitting around here in silence, and they're doing it, but I can't do it. Everybody thinks that. And so when you call it out and say, you know, the first couple of times you do this, all you're going to see are your thoughts. And it's actually an advantage in that, because you recognize how much we're controlled by your thoughts, but you've never alluded to it before. You've never seen that before. And now you're seeing it in spades because that's all you have, or so you think that's all you had. So the technique they found that they used in centering prayer is you use a word. They call it a sacred word. And the word is not a mantra. I know mantras, but it's not a mantra. You know, mantras are wonderful techniques for getting into a meditative state, but it's a concentrative type of meditation. So you clear your mind by concentrating on the mantra. This is not a mantra, as wonderful as a mantra can be. This is simply a reminder that you don't want to dwell on the thoughts. So thoughts come up, you don't even know you're thinking. You follow the thought through. Why did that guy say that to me? You know, what's this problem with me? And then pretty soon we have this wonderful ability for our mind to recognize that we're thinking. So when our mind recognizes, we use the sacred word, it's peace or Lord or whatever, just to get us back to that mode of holding still and letting thoughts come and go. Now, in the first couple of times you do it, or first month or 2 months, whatever, that's all you see. But something is growing inside of you where you see the difference between who you are in some inarticulate way, some non-verbal way, and all the thoughts that are matriculating through your mind. And you keep practicing this, and that space gets larger, 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 larger. So in that space, that's a meditative space, all sorts of wonderful, creative things start to happen. And you never thought you could ever develop a space like that, because most of the time when you try to do that, you're using your willpower. And this is not about willpower, which is wonderful, because most of us don't do well with willpower. We just don't, particularly things like prayer and how to relate to God. We think we have to use willpower, but willpower, because truly, and I say this experientially, I don't say this from a doctrinal point of view, truly, God just wants us sitting there. God's going to take over. And I've seen it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times where God takes over. And guys say to me, I don't know what happened, Ray, but all of a sudden, I don't know where I got the idea, but all of a sudden, I realized, I'm not such a bad guy after all. I know I'm not the best guy in the world, but I'm not the worst either. And honestly, they kind of whisper, honestly, I could see why God would love me and want what's best for me. Well, that to me is the perfect earmark of somebody who's in a practice. They don't understand what's going on because it's not an intellectual deal. They can't articulate it, narrate it, right? But they're having these divine experiences. That's what I call them anyway. And I think there's all sorts of verifications for that. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to have a denominational background. I'm not asking you to believe anything. I'm just suggesting, or it's not me that's suggesting, but I think the practice is suggesting that you just look at your own experience and see what plops up. And inevitably, and I've had a lot of guys who don't believe in God, at least they don't believe in the God that's been offered to them, okay? That God that's been offered to them is a God that's saying, yeah, I'll love you, but you got to ask for forgiveness first, and you got to keep asking for forgiveness, and you got to keep your motives clean and clear. We don't want anything messy. And then, I might listen to you. So they're always on their knees and always praying, help me, and I'm sorry, forgive me, I'm sorry. Well, who can relate to that? Over the long term, you get tired of doing that. And I believe that the God that I believe in anyway wants to communicate so much that all you got to do is hold still and then check out your experience, and all of a sudden it starts to happen. It doesn't happen through your brain. It's not a logical conclusion. It happens in your experience. They don't have to make an intellectual leap to faith. They simply have to look at their experience. They don't have to go to me or anybody else, anybody they read or some person that's speaking to them in church, or they just look at their own experience and they see themselves, see flowers breaking through the cement. Where the heck did this come from? Or another guy. This is why I want to do the film, because these guys are so extraordinary. Their spiritual experiences are so extraordinary that other prisoners need to see this.